As I was thinking through the title for this particular episode, there was no shortage of content to pull from. I settled on this. Multifamily's attribution problem finally has an answer. Then I thought about this for a subtitle. Attribution is a lie and what comes after it. So digging in a little bit today, late night Twitter debates, first touch, last touch, W models, source wars, all of that sound familiar? Back in 2006, Eric Brown, Mark Julien, Mike Whaling, Lisa Trezine, and many, many others. Brent Williams was another person. There are a lot of people that would show up 9 o'clock at night, probably go to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We talked about everything multifamily, but attribution came up as a common theme. And ever since then, and even probably prior to that, we've been trying to assign credit for lease like it's a fantasy football stat. Isn't that true? It's so true. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The customer was never, ever shopping that way. Today, I want to talk about a LinkedIn post that I saw this week that stopped me mid-scroll. Eric Brown, Mike Whaling, exchanging conversation about attribution. Then a bunch of smart people appeared, and it took me back to 2006. I'm Mike Brewer, and you're listening to The Intelligence Fabric, where we uncover how intelligence really shows up in multifamily. Let's pull the thread. Here's the real problem. A prospect, we all know this, a prospect doesn't come from one source. You see a property in the ILS, you may Google it later, or maybe you Google it first, and then you see it in the ILS, you click on a retargeting ad, you read reviews at apartments.com or other places, you drive by, you check Instagram, and as of late, you ask your favorite LLM. And very soon, very, very soon, like as early as today, you can create your own digital proxy who will do all the work for you. And then weeks later, you finally show up to fill out a guest card on the website or on the LS system. But in any case, we say, Zillow did it. Or worse yet, we say, it was drive-by. Our systems aren't lying. They're just trying to flatten something that can't be flattened or that isn't flat. Attribution, as we define it in multifamily, is a human attempt to simplify a non-linear journey. And that journey just got more complex. Okay, fast forward to the LinkedIn post that I'm talking about. Mike Whaling shared something that I think is worth repeating. He said attribution is probably a misnomer. What we actually need is contribution modeling. Not who gets the trophy, but when we change X, what does it do to Y? If we increase Google spin, what happens to applications? If I cut an ILS, what happens to the tour volume? If I improve nurture timing, what happens between guest cards and scheduling the tour? It's not really conceptual or philosophical. It's really decision making. And here's the tension. This is where multifamily always gets stuck. Multi-touch sounds hard. By the way, I think that's a buzzword. Multi-touch sounds really hard. It's really a heavy lift. There's a lot of data stitching. There's integration anxieties. So what do? We default to the status quo, the path of least resistance. We do what water does when it wants to find a way out. Because it's easy, we use first touch. Even if it's wrong, it's easy, so we do it. So the industry has talked about multi-touch for years. Talking and doing are two very different things. And to me, that's where the real shift is happening. All right, let's get back to the remark that Eric made on LinkedIn that got this conversation started. What impressed him about Hyly.AI? He said what stood out in the demo wasn't that it does attribution. It was that it reframes the question entirely. So instead of debating first touch or last touch, it maps the actual multifamily journey. The contact creation, the scheduling, the tour, the application, the lease. All the milestones that an operator really cares about. And then it does something very powerful. It stitches signals forward and backwards across that journey. So instead of asking who gets the credit for the lease, you start asking which channels influence which milestones. So an ILS might be great at generating guest cards, Google might be great at reacting prospects near the application. Remarketing might influence tour scheduling. So it's different sources with different impact at different moments. That is a more useful conversation or discussion for COOs and marketing leaders. I think there is a bigger picture at play here. I like to refer to it as the intelligence fabric. If you zoom out, this is bigger than attribution. This is about all those signals that we just referred to. It's about orchestrating them, orchestrating all of those signals. So multifamily, all of you operators, you're sitting on top of all this rich data from your CRM, call tracking, chat logs, ad platforms, tour outcomes, all this stuff. You have all this data, but it all sits in silos, separate silos. When those systems don't talk, we make decisions off partial truths, sometimes no truth at all. We're doing it from our gut. And I think that's the problem that intelligence fabric, the way I like to describe it, is built to address. It's a connective layer that understands context, it understands the sequence, and it understands cause and effect. And when those signals are stitched together like that, your whole decision-making process changes. All your decisions change when you have that information stitched together in a way that is useful and informative. And then when you put AI in that, inside that stitched system, not just on top of the data source, your performance really starts to compound. Now, just as we think we have it all figured out, which we don't, along comes this agent to agent future. So last summer, I did a presentation at Blueprint, and we were talking about the agentic driven world. And that is agents inside of an organization. And you or me, Mike, has a digital proxy. So I have my own digital agent. So right now, that's a layer that we are not fully processing. Right now, we track human behavior. But in that world, we'll soon be tracking agent to agent behavior. When prospects, people are already doing it, but your prospects are going to use AI to do the shopping on their behalf. And then operators, we're already doing this today. Operators are using AI to respond. Today, it's responding to humans, but very, very soon, literally today, you can start to see agent to agent interactions. Then you're going to start seeing marketing automation adjusting in real time. That is fascinating and mind-blowing at the same time. So attribution models that were built for 2012 web clicks, or things that we were debating back in 2006, 2007 on Twitter between Mike and Eric and Lisa and others, that particular model will not survive this shift. We're moving from who clicked to what pattern drove the lift. That is an entirely different paradigm. Now, you might be asking yourself why all this matters. I doubt that, because there are some incredibly smart marketing people in the multifamily industry, off the charts. So all of you know that bad attribution creates bad downstream decisions. If you cut the wrong channel or you overinvest in the wrong source, that leads to maybe blaming the wrong team, or you optimize the wrong milestones in this journey that we've talked about stitching together. So if you believe that one source deserves full credit for a lease, you will absolutely misallocate your capital. You'll absolutely overspend or underspend, and you won't get the results that you're after. If you understand that contribution across the journey that we've talked about, if you understand that, then you'll start to allocate with absolute precision. Those dollars that are dear to you, you'll absolutely allocate those in the right places. This is not marketing theory anymore. This is real stuff, and it's available to us today. And it translates into NOI, which translates into the value that you produce in your community. We all know that we drive NOI to increase the value of the community. And today you have a great opportunity to employ a tool to do that. All right, so let's land this plane. Let's bring it to a close. And it might be that the industry doesn't need better attribution. Maybe it just needs better stitching. Maybe we stop asking who gets credit and start asking what moved the customer forward. That's a more honest question, and honesty is a competitive advantage. I want to say big thanks to Eric Brown for posting and calling on Mike Whaling to leave a comment, which Mike did in a very thorough and thoughtful way. Mike has a fantastic way of naming things very clearly. That thread is very much worth reading. We'll link to it in the comments. We've been debating this since way back when, 2007. I mentioned it a couple of times. I won't re-mention it, but we've been ranting about it for a very long bit of time. The difference now, I think technology is finally catching up to this philosophy that we've been debating for a long bit of time. And when that happens, the operators that absolutely understand contribution, not credit, will quietly outperform the rest. That's it for the Intelligence Fabric today. If something here resonates, pay attention. I'll see you next episode where I will pull another thread in multifamily. Thanks for watching.